There will be like YouTube episodes of like a 3-hour dive. What happened to Mike Mollman? Hello, folks, and welcome to Author Adjacent, a show about the journey from hobbyist writer to professional author. I'm your host, Michael Vadney, and today I am sitting with Mike Mollman, author of the Protectors of Protani series, the Children of Mars saga, and the recently released Proxima Station. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
Of course. We've kind of been like around each other's social peripheral for a while, so like I'm really glad that you reached out. We got you on the show. The first thing I want to ask is the first thing that I always ask is, how did you get to where you are today in your author writing journey?
Sheer stubbornness.
Tell me more about that.
I mean, I started writing in 2017, basically to see if I could. I had no aspirations of being a writer before then. I can tell you my story. It started February 27th, 2027. I can tell you the whole backstory if you want to hear it. I just started writing. Took me 4 years before I was confident enough to publish anything. And now I've published 6 books. I have 2 more that will be published within the next 6 months, and it astounds me that I'm, still doing this. This was unforeseen. No thought of this ever happening until it happened.
So what is so special about that date that made you go, you know what, I'm going to do this?
The story goes February 26th. A friend of mine who I work with, Angela, she said, Mike, the charity she's with, the woman's daughter is coming up. She's an author. She's going to have a book signing at the local library. It's kind of last minute. We're afraid no one's going to be there and it'll be embarrassing. I know you like to read. Would you mind coming to the author signing? I was like, you know what? I have never met an author before in my life. This sounds awesome. So I went, asked no questions, which was my mistake. So I get there and there's 25 people or so there. And I look around and I'm like, I am the only male present. There were mothers there with their 14 and 12-year-old daughters, and I am the only male present. I'm like, what did I get myself into? And I know Angela, if I were to have left, I would still be hearing about it today. 8 years later, she would not have given this up. So I was like, I have to stay. I'm like, okay. I was like, well, I want to just sit in the back corner and hopefully everyone will get me. I was like, well, if I do that, everyone's going to be, why is that creepy guy in the back corner? Is he looking at my daughter? And I'm like, okay, I can't do that. So I ended up seeing front and center, and this woman starts to talk about her book, and it's a love triangle between teenagers. You want a topic that I am less interested in, I don't know what to tell you. So I sat there, I was like, okay, this too shall pass. Just be quiet, be patient. And she finishes and she goes, are there any questions? Well, since 2 days ago, no one knew you were coming. No one's read your book. It's your first book. Of course, there's no questions. So it's crickets, crickets. And she's she's a champ. She must do public speaking. They always tell you to wait. Don't immediately blurt out something, kind of force the audience. And I was like, okay, well, you're forcing me. So how did you publish your book? You just upload to Amazon? You mean it's free? Oh my God. How do and just everything about how to publish a book, nothing about her book, everything that would make an author upset. So, it's like, thanks for coming to my show and asking about how you can do what I'm doing and compete. I knew no better. So that's what I did. And then afterwards, I was like, I was short on money at that point in time. And I was like, I have to buy this stupid book. Why? I'm like, I don't even know who to give it to. I don't know anyone, what am I going to do? So I bought it. There's a picture. Angela's like, take a picture now with the author. So the author's looking like, who on earth is this guy? And so, and I'm just smiling like a dweeb holding her book. And then when I got home, I was mad. I was like, I didn't need to spend this money. I did. I was like, you know what? I'm going to read it, and I'm not going to share with anyone else because I'm not going to let people know how terrible I am. But I'm going to make fun of it the whole way through because it has to be horrible. I started reading it, and I had zero interest in the plot. But I'm reading, I'm like, it's clear. I mean, That's what I can say about her writing. There's no problems with it. I understand everything that's going on. I have zero interest in the plot or the characters, but it is perfectly clear. It is perfectly good. So, I was like, great. Then I started thinking, I was like, you know what? I bet I can do that. And so I started writing. Um, and 4 years later, I published the second book I ever wrote. And then I published the third, fourth, and fifth. And then I went back to the first one, polished it off, and I published that last year. And
What was that first one?
the Haley Traveler was the first one. Um,
Oh,
I
okay.
I wrote that thing 14 times
Wow.
before I sent it to my editor and got it back and edited and then sent, 18 times at least I rewrote that entire book.
Yeah.
And honestly, it needed all 18 because my writing in the beginning was atrocious. I changed tense every paragraph.
Oh boy.
It just, I mean, everything you could do wrong, I did. So, but yeah,
Yep.
that started just on a lark. There was no, I never took English 101 or 102 in college, so I'm like,
Mhm.
I can't. Clearly, there's some sort of agency that certifies you able to write, and I can't do that. I don't have the basic requirements. So,
That's something I think a lot of people don't understand is like anybody can do this with enough effort. So, one, I love your origin story. It is very unique. I never would have realized that. And I'm wondering now that picture that you took with that author, did she ever use it for any of her like publication or marketing? Because I really hoped that she did, just to show the
so
breadth of her audience.
I have no idea. I mean, I followed her and got like a couple newsletters, and I'm like, why am I following her? I'm not going
Yeah.
to buy book two. I'm like, I mean, she's a delightful person. She writes
Mhm.
what she wants to write. It's just not for me. So, which is
That's
why
very fair.
I do not tell people what her name is because I don't want her to, hear about this and be like embarrassed that, oh my God, he was horrified to be at don't care. I mean, she's perfectly lovely. I mean, part of the thing was she said, "Well, I have 5 kids, I homeschool, I write on the side." I'm like, "You how do
That's
you have time?"
amazing. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
and so part of it was, well, if she can do it with 5 kids and the oldest one is 9, surely I have the time to do this. I'm single, I live alone, I have a dog.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of time commitments there. Um,
And like you said, she wrote a clear story. It made sense all the way through. And if you can bare minimum do that, you will find an audience for your story. I am convinced if you try hard enough
yep.
and you can make a clear, not even concise, just a story that can be understood, there are people out there that will want to read what you have to say.
I mean, there's no issue with the plot. It was clear. It was, there were no plot holes, anything like that. It just, just not for me. Love triangles with teenagers involved.
Yeah,
Not for me.
I get that. I'm not the target audience for that either. Maybe one like a long time ago, the closest I got was the Harry Potter love triangles that happened when I was growing up, but not so much anymore.
Yeah.
So, at what stage during that whole process, like those first 4 years and then publishing your second book that you wrote, at what point did you feel that you were an author?
It took a while. I was like, I published a book, but I'm just pretend, and that stuck for a couple years. I mean, I've published my sixth book now, so I'm kind of over that. And I have the thick skin. I'm like, you know what? I write first person present tense. There is a sizable percentage of people who will never ever read that because they hate it. Nothing I can do about that. Fine. When I first started, I really did not like my boss, and I was like, this is going to get me to quit my job and write full time because I had that dream because I knew nothing about the writing process. That was the biggest fiction going. Then things got better, and I wrote a book. And one of my brothers, he's like, "Well, I can't believe you did it. I never would have guessed that you'd ever stick through it and finish it." And I'm like, "That's great. Now buy it from me." Probably beginning of last year, I published my fourth book in the Brittani series, and that took forever. That took 15 months. I was burned out. I didn't realize it. It was the fourth book in a row in the same series, and I was just ground to dust. And finally, somebody said, "Well, why don't you write something else? Get refreshed. You can always go back to it." So I desperately need to go back to it someday. I dusted off Haley Traveler because I was like, all the effort I put into that. So I published that, and then I was like, okay, Brittany's back, and I was like, I really kind of have ideas for Haley too, and I'm on a hot streak. So I wrote that, and I sent that out this past April to beta readers, and I got great feedback. But while I gave them, I said, take a month. I'm just going to let it sit. Let it before I dive back into it. And I was like, well, what do I do? With a month. So in a month's time, I wrote the first draft of Proxima Station. One, it's short, and two, there's 5 aliens. The 5 aliens are based on the idiosyncrasies of the 5 dogs I've had. So there was no like discovery of what do they do in this. I know exactly what they will do. I know what my dogs do. I lived with all of them for at least a dozen years. So so I wrote that. I wrote the second draft like within a week, which I didn't let it sit. And I was like, and I put my newsletter. I was like, help. Everyone, my beta readers have my first manuscript, and now I have another one that I didn't expect to have. Can I find more beta readers, please? And I got it back. And this is a 28,000 words, 150 pages or so. So I got them back about the same time. And I looked down. I was like, honestly, Proxima Station is closer to publishing than Stranded and Alone. I was like, so why don't I take the easy win? So I published that. And while I was publishing this, it just came out, July 25th? So 3 weeks maybe. I was like, while I'm doing all the marketing stuff, I don't want to start another major project. I'll just scribble. I have the manuscript for Proxima 2, Jungle Planet. I just sent out for alpha readers because I finished it Sunday. And I mean, this just it's so quick and easy. Like I said, I know all the characters. So there's no, what happens next? Uh, it's just easy. So I will probably have Proxima 2 out. I will have Haley 2 out. And then if the people who like my fantasy don't kill me, I will go back and do book 5 of that series because it's been a year and a half and I haven't started on book 5. So it's going to be another year. And if I publish these two first, that means it'll be like a 3-year hiatus and they're going to start throwing George R. R. Martin's name around, and
It's not quite the same because you are working on all these sci-fi series, but it just sounds like, Mike, you just can't be stopped.
I like the shorter works. I told some people, I was like, for Sins and Sorrows, I included 3 short stories about Grami, my main character from the Pratani series. And I was like, you know what? I love writing short stories. They're short, they're to the point, it's chopped, boom, 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 you're done. Love it. I've not written a short story since. I'm like, but I have in my mind there are 35 books I want to write, and I've written 6. So, and I'm doing turn 55 this year, so I need to get moving.
At this rate, I think you're going to get through all of them. I think you're going to be just fine. Like, it is amazing how much you're producing in such a short amount of time. Like, do you have a particular method that gets you immediately deep into the story to writing it?
I wrote Proxima 2 in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. But to be honest, I've been thinking about it. Like when I drive to and from work, sometimes I listen to my audiobook. Sometimes I'm like, no, what can happen? And I'm like, no, that's not ridiculous enough. What can make it worse? And and those are fun drives because I'm sitting there like, no, I am going to ruin this guy's life. Thank God they're not real.
Otherwise, you would be a cruel person.
And whenever people ask, like, if you were to go into one of your stories, like, no, main character would kill me straight up. They'd like it. You're the one? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. You're the one that's been making my life so miserable for character growth.
I mean, Proxima 2 is coming out. Haley 2 is coming out. I wrote what was going to be Haley 2, a novella. They said keep it under 10,000 words, so I kept it at 12,000 words. And then that ended up falling through. They never published the anthology, so that's now Haley 3. So I have the plot for Haley 3, and I just have to go back and fill in stuff. But since Haley 2 is now, coming in here, there's other stuff that I've just invented for this book. I'm like, oh, that's going to carry through the series. And so I'm like, I could, publish Haley 3 by July of next year, but then that'd be 6 straight sci-fi books. And oof, I'm like, I don't know. I want to get back to that, but I'm scared now because it's been so long. I'm going to have to reread everything because I don't know the particulars. Oh, And before we forget, one piece of writing advice, very important. Do not ever tell people what the color of your character's eyes are because you will not remember. And 50 pages later, they'll go from gray to green and then they'll be blue. So I will never tell you the color of anyone's eyes, with the one exception of a fantasy series I started and I abandoned for now, but I'll go back to it. Her name is Lapis. Lapis lazuli is blue. Her eyes are blue because I can remember that. So if you ever hear, Grami's eyes might be green because I could remember that, but I don't think I ever stated because at least I better not have ever stated because I don't remember. Do not eye colors. Let the reader determine that. Just don't. That, and if you're going to do motorcycles, guns, or horses, you better have your facts right, or people will come for you.
God, people
Um,
feel very strongly about those things, and I say that as someone who rides a motorcycle. That is fact. I'm surprised you get it on the horses, but I don't know. Like, have you gotten a lot of hate on that?
one person who she actually likes my books,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Oh, you have horses? Did I get the horses right?" She goes, "No, but you weren't as egregious as most people, so I just overlooked it. I'm used to that in fantasy. People don't, they say horses are going to run and charge things. They're not. They're not predators. They're prey. They run from things. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, good to know. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
No, that's how I feel about, like, hacking in movies. So for my day job, I work as a software engineer, so anytime I see hacking in the movies, I'm just like, "Okay, just let it be that way, whatever." Everybody knows this is not how it actually works.
I was going
Oh,
to say
go
my
ahead.
roommate from college, when Jurassic Park came out, and the girl goes, "Oh, it's a Linux system." He's like, Linux is not a flight simulator. You do not no, it's not. Oh, just set him off. And I thought it was the most hysterical thing, just because he's like, just fast forward through. We can't watch that. I'm
It
like,
it
well,
is probably the most classic example of what I'm talking about. So, can you then describe for me, the process of getting your first book, which was actually your second book, published? And, like, how did it feel to have, like, that first finished book in your hands?
so I do not recommend this to anyone unless you want to sabotage your writing career. So so I was working on, becoming a druid, and it got to this point is real, where I was like, you know what? I could go through this 6 more times and I would find things to change, but I don't know if it's going to get any better. At this point, I'm changing deck chairs on the Titanic. And I was like, you know what? That's it. Ran spell checker. I'm done. And so I uploaded to KDP. It was July 4th, 2021. And then I waited like 20 minutes. It's live. I called my brother and I doubled the number of people in this world who knew I published a book. I had no social media presence whatsoever. I didn't join Twitter until, oh God, last year. Um, so I mean, I told him, I was like, well, that's great that 5 minutes later, people who knew were doubled, but it stopped there at two. Uh, so I mean, just I did not know to set the groundwork. I didn't know I was going to be an author for more than one book anyway. Um, but I just do your homework, be part of the community, talk to other authors. I can tell you, Proxima Station 2 that I finished, I contacted 4 people. I said, hey, never in my life have I let anyone read my first draft because first drafts, the only thing good about them is they're completed. And I was like, you know what? This one, it's 19,000 words. It probably needs to be 30,000, but I think, the story is there. I just have to, actually tell people what I'm seeing in my head because I just race past that often. I'm like, I sent to 4 people. One person got it today, and 2 hours later, she messaged me and said, "Oh my god, it's freaking awesome! Can I give you my notes tomorrow?" And I'm like, sure,
That's an amazing response.
yeah. So, but the shorter works, that's why I love to do short stories. I can knock a short story out in a week, and go over
Mhm.
it several times and be like, okay, I'm done. This is the best I can do. I would love to do more short stories, but again, I have 35 books I want to write. So, yeah.
And novellas are getting pretty popular too, especially in the indie space, because a lot of people use them as breaks between these big old chonkers that they write.
Yeah, I don't believe in chunkers anyway. That's the Mike rule that I won't read a book over 500 pages. So
Oh, really?
people are getting me because I'll be like, hooked on the series, and like book 4 or 5 in the series is like 650 pages, and I'm like, I have to know what happens. Why you did me wrong, but and I've told so many people, and I've had so many people tell me how ridiculous I am. Which okay, fine. Um, and I'm like, when I write book 7 of Pratani, the final, I'm like, I don't know how that's going to be under 500 pages. I'm thinking 700 is probably what it's going to need to be, and I will never hear the end of it. I will give up
Yep.
social media after I publish it. I'll be like, okay, it's published, taking a year hiatus. Forget about me because
That's the
that's what's
thing.
really
You're
good
just
with your
become the
books. Yeah,
mysterious figure within the writing community. There will be like YouTube episodes of like a 3 hour dive. What happened to Mike Mollman? As you just disappear. Because a lot of people do know you. Like I will say, um, I've heard your name in the community way more than until the time that we met. Like you have become like a pillar of the indie community, at least in the social circles that I'm trying to get into. A lot of people know you. A lot of people like working with you. And we'll definitely be getting into this in next week's episode as we're talking about like selling indie and such. But
yep,
as part of getting into the community, you actually buy a lot of people's books and sell them at cons, right?
yep, yeah.
How
That
did you get into that?
So I just started this year, last December. Of all people, James Maxey, who's a wonderful person. He's been going to Comic Cons for a dozen years. He knows everything under the sun. He's like, "Hey, do you want to go to Steel City Con? I'll sell you, however many feet of space you want. I have 2 tables, 12 feet. This is how much it costs. I'll charge you by the foot, however much you need, and you can sell. That way, there's 2 people at the booth. So if you have to use a bio break, there's somebody there, and it's nice to have someone there you can talk to who understand." I was like, yes, I'll do it. And I looked at him, and he had 25 books, and I had at the time 5. And I was like, and at the end I was like, well, I sold $700 worth, which I was like, but it's only 4 feet of space. I was like, I made money, but and he's like, well, I didn't break 2,000. And I was like, well, he has 5 times as many books as me, so I should not feel bad about this. And I sat there thinking, I was like, for me to get to 25 books at my 1 book a year rate, I'll be dead or too old to go to cons at least. And I was like, God, I wish I had a bunch more books. How can I do this? And then it just hit me. There's other people whose books I read in the community. I was like, they're great books. I could sell those. And I was like, well, why don't I ask? And so I told people, tell me what it costs to print and ship. I'll add $2 per book onto it, so you make some money. Give it to me. I will then sell it. You'll find new readers. I'll make a couple bucks off of each sale. Everybody wins. And I started that, and it just sort of snowballed. I was doing the math. I spent over $3,000 this year on people's books,
Wow.
and that's the wholesale price. So now
Yeah.
now I need to sell them. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, I saw
uh,
that you recently picked up Adam Fernandez's series, the Midnight Wars series.
oh, that is so good,
Oh,
so
I
good.
love it. Absolutely love that series. It's so fun. He's doing a cover reveal soon for the third one, and I am just chomping at the bit for it. I'm so ready.
And the thing about Adam that I absolutely love is that he does audiobooks for everything, because I'm very
Mhm.
much an audiobook guy.
Same.
Because being old, I can't. I apparently I always fidgeted when I read, but when you have
Mhm.
healthy eyes, that's not a problem. But when you
Yeah.
have glasses, especially bifocals, and you fidget, you're like, okay, now I can't see, and then you have to. I just spend the whole time, adjusting here, there, and like I don't even know what happened on this page. I've spent the last 2 minutes moving my head this. So I was like, so I just do audio. Um,
Audio
and
is so good. It's just it makes it so that you can listen to books while you're doing other things. That's why I really enjoy it because I just have
yep,
a lot to do. I'm very busy. So it's nice to be able to listen to audiobooks when I'm like doing the dishes or taking care of the yard or walking the dogs. Yeah.
yep.
It's nice.
I tell people my house is way cleaner than it used to be. because
Oh,
now I
yeah.
just put on audiobook and I'm like, okay, I'll clean.
Yeah, it
Uh,
makes the whole process enjoyable.
yeah, and I have a 35-minute commute each day, so if I'm not planning the
Perfect.
demise of my main character, I'm listening to someone else's book. Um,
And the
you know,
demise of their main character.
yeah, exactly.
Everybody wins.
Yes, except for the fictional people.
Well,
Uh,
sometimes they win in the end. We'll see.
Sometimes,
Well,
yeah.
we got to get there. So we will definitely be getting more into that as far as like selling and marketing like indie books and stuff in the next episode, which will be available next week at the time of this airing. But for this one, I actually kind of wanted to ask you, how do you how do I word this? What do you recommend to people who are trying to get into the book community, into the writing community? Because I agree, like if you are going to be an indie author, it is absolutely essential to participate because that's the
Yes.
only way you're going to like network and really grow your readership and your support system. But how would you recommend people getting into that?
So, I mean, you see it on Twitter all the time with people like, "How do I sell my book so that I can, quit my job?" And you're like, "Wow, this is the first post they made on Twitter, and they just expect you to, here's how you become the next household name." Because I've never wanted to do that. I mean, one, you're like, "I'm giving you nothing. I just want answers. I want to extract and and that's never going to work. Join the community. I had the benefit of, at least earlier, I read so many books. I've probably read a few thousand books in my life. So when I went to write, the only reason I probably was able to write is that I had all that, back here. I always tell people I read over 100 Forgotten Realms books and over 100 Dragonlance books. And so when I went to write a book, guess what? It feels like it could be in any either of those because that's what I'm used to. That's what I like. That's I've read 100 examples of it, some that were terrible, some that are amazing. And so when I wrote, it kind of follows that pattern. I get people all the time going, "So this was a D&D campaign, right?" And I'm like, "I've never played D&D before in my life." And they
Really?
no one believes me when I tell them that, but it's the absolute
That is
truth.
shocking to me because like even on your website, I think you have like a few like D&D modules that you wrote, didn't you?
Yeah, is that still up? I thought I canceled it. But yeah,
That
I
site is still up.
well, I'm not paying for it anymore, so sooner or later it'll go away. But I had some D&D modules, which when I first started, I was like, to make money, I need more than one book to sell.
Mhm.
So I was doing D&D modules, and I don't know how to sell them because I never played. And I'm like,
Mhm.
the guy who was helping me, he's like, "Well, tell them it's a sandbox." I'm like, "What does that mean?" I have no idea. I'm like, I'm just reciting words now, and it's like an empty-headed fool. And so I never could really sell those.
Mhm.
But so I kind of stopped after that. And there were six planned, six were written, but
Yeah.
I have artwork for all of them. But then I just stopped after four, and oh well. Um, so
That's a
yeah,
hard
now
market to get into.
yeah, oh yeah. Um, so I don't know, what was the question? I
The
went.
question is, what do you recommend to people who want to
Oh,
participate into the book community? How do you suggest they start?
one, read a lot if you want to write a book. Read a lot because you will learn the good and the bad and the by reading. Two, join discords or Twitter or Instagram, whatever. Pick your poison. Whatever format works for you. Talk to people. Don't go in as me like, "Michael, tell me all your secrets now." You know, Go in like, "Hey, what have you read? What do you like?" Really. For instance, Nico's book reviews. Everything that man reads, if I read, I'm like, our tastes are so similar. I'm like, everything he likes, I like, and I'm just like, okay, I just know. You know, and then there's other people who I like them personally, but I'm like, you have terrible choice of books. I hate everything about them. Like Hyperion, everyone raves about Hyperion. I I'm I'm like, I know English. I should be able to comprehend this, but it is just a word salad to me. I it's not for me. So, but I like the people anyway, so I'll be like, "Hey, your taste sucks, but anyway, let's talk about."
Yeah.
But
Maybe we'll
be a
find
member.
some overlap here.
be a member of the community, help out, and if somebody posts, "Hey, I'm having trouble with how does get my microphone to work," jump in and say, "Well, it could be this, it could be that." Be helpful first, and then then people be like, "Okay, you know what? This guy's he's actually part of the community. He's not just here trying to extract what he can because he has delusions of being the next George R. R. Martin, except he'll finish a series." Um, you know, so
Really
just
dragging this guy through the mud here.
I read the first book and I didn't really care for it, but everyone was saying how wonderful it was. So I started reading the second book. I got about halfway through. I was like, one, I hate every character. I want them all to die. I just want a nuclear bomb to get dropped on Westeros. That, and I was like, it's boring. It's long. There's a lot of talking and not much doing. I so I was like, you know what? No. And if I'm going to read a book, it has to have some action. I'm not going to do 40 pages of let's determine what this character is. No, I'm not sitting through that. I will DNF your book way before the 40-page mark. Um, so
Mike Mollman with the strong opinions. I like it.
always. That's why, like, there are people who, audiobooks are like, "Do you want a code?" And I was like, "No, no, I will buy your book because there's a 50-50 chance I will DNF, and I don't want to use one of your codes if I'm like, no, not for me." So I'm like, you know what? I'll just buy it. That way we're all happy. You get a sale, if nothing else. And then I don't actually tell people, unless they ask, I won't say, "Oh, I tried. It's horrible."
That's something I've kind of like run into with the community a little bit too, is just that whole idea of like when you are just a reader and you're reviewing people's work, you can pretty much say whatever you want because you're on that side of the fence. But as soon as you get closer and closer to you are also an author, especially in the indie space, and you are now talking about your peers. And it I'm not going to say it's wrong, but it gets more complicated to do it at that point. I'm actually experiencing that right now as I get closer and closer to releasing my debut. Um, I want to do book reviews, but I don't know if I should keep doing book reviews. We'll see what happens though.
So for me, I figured my rule is if it's a 4 or 5 star, I will review it. If it's less than that, I'm like, you know what? I'll give you if I'm like, "Michael, I'm sorry, your book to me is a 2.5 star. This is what I have wrong with it." I will contact you. I'll say, "Do you want feedback?" And if you say yes, we're like, "Great," because I'm Gen X and I don't sugarcoat anything. Here it is. And they'll be like, "But I didn't like your book. So what? We can still be friends." You know,
Oh, I agree. Like,
and
I wish that was a more common feeling, honestly, because I do think that we can like different things and still be friends and still
yes,
enjoy that kind of camaraderie. But I don't know, that is a good attitude because normally, if a book is a 1 or 2 star, I don't finish it. But I also don't read
right,
a lot of 1 or 2 stars. But I also
right.
don't give a lot of 5 stars out either. So most of the things I do are like 3 to 4. And 3 star reviews, people have very mixed feelings on. Some people are like, hey, it's 3 stars, great. And other people are like, I'm devastated.
So I've been all over on this. I'll tell you,
Hmm.
if you give me 3 stars, I mean, one, if you bought the book, you are allowed to rate it whatever you want for whatever reason you want. I mean,
100%.
you bought it, you get to say.
Hmm.
But if you give me a 3 star and you're like, it didn't work for me because of A, B, C,
Hmm.
fine. If you're like, I didn't like it because it's first person present tense and I didn't think it should be, I'm like, well, I can't do anything with that. Um,
Yeah, I agree. I think it
I,
should be like actionable reasons
yeah.
because otherwise it's just a matter of taste.
I mean, and that's fine if you're just going to do matter of taste. I mean, I had one woman who gave my book 2 stars, which,
Hmm.
okay, fine. I mean, she bought it, she gets that right. And then in her review, she put, well, I'm multilingual. Those of you whose native language is English, you'll never understand his work. And I'm like, thank you for putting that. Everyone knows you're a loon now and not to
Yeah,
pay attention to your.
that is the most
Um,
wildest thing I've ever heard.
and I remember when I talked to her at the thing, I was talking to her. I was like, we are having two separate conversations here. We're two ships passing. In, I mean, I'm not connecting. And she bought the book. I'm like, well, hey, she bought the book. And then she gave me a 2 star review. And at the last thing she put was, I'm not sure if I'm going to go on to book 2 or not. I'm like, "Oh, please don't. Please don't."
I don't need any more of this bad juju up in here.
But, I mean, I had also had a 4-star where the guy said, "His is a type of book, if you're listening to it, you can zone out for a while and come back, and you haven't missed anything because he's always on a quest, and so you'll just pick up where he is at the quest." 4 stars. I'm like, "Okay. I don't think that's a 4-star review, but thanks."
Thank you. Thank you, kind stranger.
So, I mean, at this point, it's more amusing than anything else, and, I
Mhm.
mean, I I can't stand the people on Twitter is like, "I just wish someone would rate my book. Can't someone rate?" I'm like, "It'll happen when it happens, be
Yeah.
better at selling." Uh, you know
Or get good, as the kids say.
yeah, if you sell 100, you'll get reviews. If you sell
Mhm.
4, then you're, beating on the same, "Hey, Michael, you haven't left a review yet." Maybe there's a good reason why, person hasn't left a review. Maybe they don't wanna leave a 2-star review for you. Leave them alone.
That is a good point. No, but I,
So
I definitely agree with you that the indie and the book community is a group of people that the more you put into that community, the more you get out
oh,
of
yeah.
it. Like
Yeah.
100%. I think it's a honestly a good analogy about life. Just the more effort you put into something, you're gonna reap more benefits. And
Yep.
it's true with that with writing, with the book community. It's just a good life lesson. People take it to heart. Uh, so getting back to, I'm punching my mic. I'm getting into a bad habit of punching this thing. It doesn't deserve this treatment. But so
Make it a main
you
character.
oh, there we go. I'll name it Phil or something. So then going through all of this process, we talk about like reviews and stuff like that, and people do deal with a lot of confidence issues. Like, how do you handle like the self-doubt and the rejection during your writing process and your writing journey? Like, what keeps you motivated to push forward?
So, I mean, now I'm in a very good spot because I have, a couple books have come out. I have a couple more ready. I'm like, I'm in a groove now. So I'm hoping that, imposter syndrome is over forever. Probably not. Um, but I mean, at the end of the day, I'm like, you know what? I like becoming a druid. I like it. It's everything I like about a fantasy series. Could I have written it a little better? Probably, but I like it. I'm going to publish it because I like it. And if you do that, there are other people who are like minded. And then if they find your book, they'll be like, "Oh my God, Michael, you are amazing." And just, I tell people, be clear and write what you want because you're going to read that thing 73 times. So if it's not something you like, I don't know how you do that. I could not. So
Absolutely not. By the way, I love that you keep saying like Michael because then nobody knows if it's you or if it's me, and we'll just let them figuring out on their own. It's amazing that it took this long for me to get another mic on the show. That's all I'm saying.
nice. So yeah, write for you and
Mhm.
you know, and go forward. Have a support group. Like if I get a bad review, are there people who I'm going to, complain bitterly to? Absolutely. Am I going to do it on
Mhm.
Twitter? No. No.
No. No,
Um,
that's what your friends, your support group is for,
yeah,
the other people that are going through the same thing that you're going through.
I'm
Absolutely agree with that.
on Twitter. I will be authentic, but if I'm crabby, there's a couple times where I put out a whole big long thread, and I'm like, no, I'm not putting that out there. I'm not,
Really neat.
I'm like, you know what? I will be authentic to you, but I'm going to show you just one side because I don't want your pity. I don't want you going, "Oh my God, is this what he really thinks?" Yes, it is. But you don't need to know that. Um,
Mhm.
so
Yeah, that has nothing to do with you, Mike Mollman, the author. That's you,
right.
Mike Mollman, the person who is
So
griping about
right,
something. Yeah.
right. Mike
No, I
Mollman, the
get that.
author, that's a brand. And so,
Mhm.
my brand is I'm going to be positive. I'm not going to be toxic positivity and oh my God, Michael, your hair is amazing. I don't know. Your hair might be good. I don't worry about hair. But um,
Thank you.
I'm
No, I
uh,
hear you though.
about the
So
only time I
oh,
mention
go ahead.
hair is when I see like people with like afros, like out to here. I'm like, I am
Mm.
so jealous of you. And they just look at me like, why is this fat white man talking to me? And they're like, okay, great. And they like run away. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, that awkward. Okay, go back and sell now.
You are on a show called Bald and Balding.
This is true.
Just
Um,
saying, there is some focus on that. So I'm actually kind of curious, how did that all start? That whole podcast.
so I met Ro at a Comic Con, and then he's like, "Hey, are you doing this one?" I was like, "Yeah, I am." I was like, "Oh, well, I'll see you in a month." And when we were there, I mean, I have to prepare. So before Comic Con, if this place opens up at 9 and you can start selling at 11, I'm going to be there at 8:55, and so I can get in there. My table's already set up. I have nothing to do for 2 hours but twiddle my thumbs. But I'm like, I'm not stuck in traffic because my hotel was 4 miles away. Just I want to be on time. I want to be early. Even for our shows, I usually log in 45 minutes before the show and just sit there like sooner or later someone will join. Because I don't. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'll forget. So I want to be prepared. I totally should have been a Boy Scout, but I was not that either. Um, so we were just sitting there, and Rose like, all this dead time before the show starts, we could be doing something productive. I'm like, well, I'm not going to try to write, too many distractions. He's like, no, no. Why don't we interview other authors, and then we can have our own show and we can, put those up. And I was like, I know nothing about video editing. I don't have, time for it. I got all these other things. And he's like, do you ever listen to me? Because I know I've told you a couple times that I was media relations in the Air Force, where I did edit video for 19 or 23 years, and now I'm at the VA where I'm in the media relations where I do this. All the thing goes, I'll edit. I'm like, oh, so I don't have to learn that.
You just
He's
got to
like,
show up.
no. I was like, so I looked at him. It's like, okay, Ro, my answer is no, but give me a week because it's something new. When you ask me something new, I'm going to just knee jerk is going to be no, 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 absolutely not. Give me a week. I'll change my mind. We will absolutely do this. So, assume that we're going to, but as of this moment, no, hell no, I'm not doing that. Give me a few days to think about it. I'll come around. I know myself well enough to know this is what's going to happen. He's like, so you could just say yes now. I'm like, no, I cannot. Welcome to Mikeville. Uh,
I 100% feel you on that, and I am now going to use that strategy on my wife because she loves new and exciting things, and I'm like, I need some time to sneak up on that idea first. So
yep.
I'm going to use that strategy of like, I'm going to say no now. It will eventually be a yes, but right now it's a no. I
Yeah.
like that. That's a good strategy.
So that's how we started. And we did, oh, I don't know, 30 some odd shows where we recorded and he did all the editing and whatnot. And then I was like, well, let's do a live show. And we did our first live show. And Ro just looked at me. He's like, this is a whole lot easier. I'm like, it really is. And so we haven't done a recorded show since. We've done 270 live shows since then. So yeah, live is just easy. There's no work ahead of time. It is what it is. You go on. Ro laughs at me all the time on the show, like, I can't believe you said that. I'm like, well, we're not editing, so let's move forward.
It's there. Just
Yeah,
keep going. I have yet to make the jump to live. Honestly, I find it really intimidating. I like the control of being able to like fix it here if I need to.
but you're young enough that you're like video editing. Sure, I can do that. Whereas I'd be like, how do I open up the program? CapCut. What is that? Which icon is it? I am a grumpy old man before my time. I, I tell people my goal is to be known as cantankerous.
I was literally about to bring up that joke because I've heard it a few times in your interviews. How are you doing on that goal? Do you think you are succeeding?
Well, I mean, one of my life's ambition is to go on my front porch and yell for people to get off my lawn. But kids kids today, they don't go outside, so they're not giving me that opportunity. And if people are walking their dogs, they'll be like, "Oh, that's a cute dog." Like I know the dogs' names in the neighborhood. I don't know the people, but I mean, I can tell you Charlie's owner. It's a female, blonde hair. But Charlie, he's a golden. I know the dogs, so I don't yell at the dogs because I'm like, "Hey, you want pee on the bush? Great, come over here. Let me pet you." So I'm failing at this whole cantankerous thing. I really need to get better. Either that or be a hermit.
I don't think being a hermit would be conducive to your indie publishing lifestyle. Not unless you're gonna do the shadow disappear for a year thing and just create the just like a Sasquatch like story around you.
Oh,
Is he real? We'll never know.
you don't know how good that sounds. Ugh.
Well, we are coming up on time, so I think this is a good moment. Mike, could you please tell the people where can they find you for now until you disappear, and where can they find your books?
So I used to have a website that I don't keep up anymore, and I thought it was down by now. So go to authormikemollman.substack.com. That's where my newsletter is, and if I actually get around to posting reviews of books, they will be there. I also post reviews of my Comic Cons, what I did, showing the numbers so people can know, this is what, if you decide to go the Comic Con route, this is what you can expect. It's just I want to be transparent. So go there. My books are on Amazon. I did go wide, but that did not work well this year, so I went back to being exclusively Amazon. So it's on KU, it's on Amazon. Contact me at authormikemollman@gmail.com, and I will send you, copies of the books that are signed. If they're hardbacks, they'll be wrapped like the ones here behind me. Um, yeah. Otherwise, I'm on Twitter way more than I should be, way more than healthy.
I absolutely feel that on that last one. And those covers are beautiful, so people definitely get in him on that. Mike, thank you again for coming on to the show. We're going to have you back on next week as we're going to be talking about how to sell and how to market your indie books. But folks, until next time, let's be author adjacent together. See you, folks.
See ya.
Awesome. Mike, this was just as funny as I thought it was going to be. Thank you so much.